Now I want to move on to probably my favorite segment of the show, and it is called the Bragging Rights Award. And this is the award that I hand out to the teams that impressed me the most over this past Saturday. I picked out 4 teams. Now, the first 2 teams are actually reoccurring from last week. The first one, Indiana, they just keep impressing me. They jumped up to number 9 because they just flat out embarrassed Michigan State 24-0. Michael Penix, he had a pretty good game. Overall, he's 91 for 150, 60.7%, 1,070 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So overall, good, but nothing spectacular. But he did have a good game against Michigan State. Now, the big discrepancy was offensive yards. Indiana had 433 offensive yards. Michigan State only 191 offensive yards. Indiana's defense is really good, actually, and I'm going to talk about that later on in my GBD picks at the end of the show. So their remaining schedule, well, let's talk about who they've beaten. Penn State, Rutgers, Michigan, and Michigan State. Next up, the big one at Ohio State. But for this week, they get their second bragging rights trophy. This next team, also second week in a row that they've gotten a bragging rights trophy, and that is Florida. Florida, man, they can score points at will. Where did this team come from? Their defense is just enough to, hold the team off. Now, that Texas A&M game, that's a different story. They need to work on their passing defense, but right now, Florida's looking really good. They blasted Arkansas 63-35. This was the battle of former Florida Gator quarterback against current Florida Gator quarterback. Felipe Franks for Arkansas against Kyle Trask for Florida. Felipe Franks was 15 for 19, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's not too bad. Kyle Trask, 23 for 29, 356 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So he didn't really throw it that much and still had a ton of production. The big story, Florida had the ball 38 minutes of the football game. So they controlled the game. Their only loss, of course, was at number 5, Texas A&M. So Florida looks really good for the second week in a row, and that's why I'm giving them another bragging rights trophy. And all they have left is at Vanderbilt versus Kentucky, at Tennessee, and then home against LSU. Not much left. So the big game will be the SEC championship because I expect Alabama to win out as well against a one-loss Florida. And if Florida beats Alabama, maybe 2 SEC teams get in. We'll see. The next team that gets the bragging rights trophy, you're probably going to call me a homer, but West Virginia looked really stinking good this past Saturday. And this is the first time I've awarded them a bragging rights trophy. So this, I'm not going to do it every week. Don't think that I'm just going to, throw out trophies to my own team. That's not going to happen. They just looked really good. They whooped TCU 24-6. They were a 2-point favorite. And to be honest with you, I'm a West Virginia fan, so I've watched every single game. West Virginia is about 4 or 5 plays away from being undefeated. The 2 biggest plays was 2 fumbled scoop and scores for the other team that won it for the other team, and some questionable, officiating. We won't get into that. But for this game, Jarrett Daggy, our quarterback for West Virginia, 19 for 26, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's okay, nothing to brag about. But our running back, Letty Brown, 24 carries for 156 yards. He's had all but 2 of his games went over 100 yards. And the game before this against Texas, he was actually injured. So I give him a pass one. So I'm going to say all but 1 game. Over the course of the season, 165 carries for 897 yards. 9 touchdowns, averaging 5.4 yards a carry. Last year, West Virginia averaged 73 rushing yards a game. Right now, we're averaging over 150, so we've more than doubled. And our defense, we are top 10 in passing yards allowed, 271 a game. Rushing yards allowed, 109 yards a game. 4th in interceptions and 3rd down conversion allowed. 35.6% we've allowed people to convert on 3rd down. And a lot of that was inflated on the Texas game. All right, I'm done with West Virginia. I've rambled on. I got my 2 cents in. The last team to get my bragging rights award, Northwestern. And I predicted them to beat Purdue, and by more than 3 points. I took the spread, and they did it. So I'm rewarding them. I'm giving them a bragging rights trophy. Number 23, Northwestern. At the time, they were ranked number 23. 27-20 over Purdue. People forget Purdue was also unbeaten as well. Right now, they're only allowing 11.5 points per game. That's really, really good. Their next game, a home game against Wisconsin. And I know Wisconsin blasted Michigan, but Michigan is crap this year. So I think Northwestern has a really, really good shot at beating Wisconsin. I'll talk about that later in my picks. Their remaining games. Home against number 10, Wisconsin, at Michigan State, at Minnesota, and home against Illinois. And the playoff predictor has Northwestern having a 0.7% chance of making the playoffs. So you're saying there's a chance. Yeah, very little. They look good. It's just they're very low ranked, and some other things would have to happen. But there you go. My bragging rights trophy goes to Indiana again, Florida again, my team, West Virginia, and Northwestern.